Okay, so this is Sakai 101 for faculty. We're going to cover a few instances of what you need to know, especially if you're new to Sakai 101 or new to online teaching. We have changed our name for this year. So what was formerly the Office of E-Learning is now the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Online Education. There are 4 of us, so I will be hosting this one today. But if you want to contact any of us later on, you will get a copy of this presentation, and you can email us individually, find us at LinkedIn, or just ask questions through a Sakai help ticket. So this session will be about 1 hour or less. You can have another tab or another device open and do things as we talk through them. You can ask questions verbally, since there's only a few of us, that'll be easier, or you can put them in the chat, and you can stop me at any time to ask anything you need. And if you want further in-depth assistance, you can make a help ticket, and we will be happy to help you anytime. So there are a few objectives for this session. So one is the SSO MFA, which is new starting as of July of this year. The difference between a master course and a standard course, 2 ways to navigate, 2 information sections that you should edit before classes start this semester, 2 instructional tools that you'll probably be using as an instructor, and 2 management tools that will also make your life easier managing your course. So first, let's talk about accessing Sakai, because there was a major change in July of 2024. So our learning management system, also called an LMS, is Sakai. It does the same things as Canvas, Blackboard, Schoology, or the other things that you may have used. And this is used for really any class modality. So we do have face-to-face classes that uses it. The hybrid and online classes definitely use it. And here's a screenshot of our new page after update in July. So single sign-on was something that we instituted because we do need more security, because there's grades and social security numbers and some data in our LMS, so we have to be a little more secure. So single sign-on was instituted. What this means is you have one login that gives you access to multiple programs. So in this case, for West Liberty, we typically use your first dot last name, although we do have some people that may have initials dot last name. And typically your initial password is your birthday. Once you log in for the first time to this account, it requires you to change it to something a little more harder to crack, or a longer password. And this is considered your Active Directory, or AD. This is the account that gets you access to all these other programs that we use. So you don't have to log in, remember this account or that account. It's kind of a one central hub. So your email address is the account, but your username is the first portion, and typically it's your birthday until you've changed it to something harder. Now that said, once you get to this account, typically on our homepage in this westliberty.edu, which I will put in chat because you will probably need to bookmark it, we'll use it heavily. This single sign-on portal, when you click here, a pop-up window will come up, and you need to select this AD because it's looking for the Active Directory account and your password, and it gets you access to what is called a Hello ID portal. And there's things in here like banners, Sakai, the WIN, some of the other things you typically use as an instructor. It's also the same for students and staff. The individual programs might change a little bit depending on your role, but for the most part, we kind of all have the same portal. If you forget your password, or you need to change it because it's been compromised, this single sign-on, when you forget your password, you can enroll in the password reset manager, so you can change it without having to make a help ticket with IT, which will save you a lot of time in the future. Now that said, with single sign-on, which is another layer of security, we have instituted another one as of July of this year. So this was called multi-factor authorization. So for you to have an additional layer, when you log into single sign-on, you will log into it again, and this time you will get a 6-digit code. This code can come to either your phone or your email, depending on what you've chosen when you've set it up for the first time. And this code will be sent to you, and it's like a second login to prove that you are you logging into it rather than somebody else trying to hack into your account. You will need to do this every time you log in. And if you have any questions about the code didn't come through or something like that, you can make it for IT. I have used email because I'm typically on my work computer, so my work email comes there. We have had some tickets with the phones. If for some reason your phone doesn't have a good signal, you may not get that code. So for that reason, I just personally use email, but you're welcome to use the phone as well. So those two logins will get you to Sakai and most of the other programs that you use as an instructor. So this next section, we're going to look at what's in a typical course and how some of these things look. And some of them have changed a little bit since our upgrade with Sakai. So when you log into Sakai now, your courses are going to be on the left side. So they will be over here, and they're typically pinned. What we've seen is for a lot of students and faculty, the courses you are currently enrolled in for the current term or the upcoming semester have been pinned over here automatically. But if they aren't, you can still go to the 9 dots. It'll open up a window and you can select the courses that you want to pin for previous semesters. Or if you're in a course project side or a group, they may be in the other section. So it also keeps track of the recent courses that you've opened, but these are the pinned ones, so it'll be pinned and then recent below it. Now, we do have a lot of tickets that are created because students are enrolled and then they don't see something in Sakai, but that's because our enrollment is syncing with the registrar's office between Sakai and Banner. It only happens twice a day, and that's at noon and 8 p.m. So if you have a student who's enrolled and they're not showing up on your roster, wait until one of those time periods and then refresh, and they may appear. We do have to tell students a lot through tickets that they may have to wait for the next sync. So if we're having some late enrollments, they do come in just a little bit later, but it's twice a day. If you accidentally unpin something, this little icon, these are clickable. You can always go to the 9 dots and repin. And you can move them around by organizing your pins, especially if it's a class that you're frequently using rather than one that's maybe an internship or something you're not going to be active in quite frequently. Now, we do have more master courses. We've had some more that have been finished this spring. If you're teaching an online or hybrid course, they have a master course with everything complete in it. So what this means, it's the full package. All the content, all the assignments, all the assessments, all the syllabus, everything is in there, and we just put it into your course. If you know you're teaching an online or hybrid course this semester and you need the master course uploaded, make a help ticket and we can get that ready for you so you can post the correct dates for this upcoming term. And right now we have about over 300 courses built, and we have more on our plate for this semester. And so since July 2023, there was a new rubric, so there's new standards that they have to meet. So online and hybrid now need to meet standards because there's specific things about what needs to be in there in terms of accessibility and navigation and some of the technical issues, but also about when students meet, especially if it's hybrid versus fully online. Now, our course template also looks a little different this year also. We have some of these icons. So if you're teaching a course and nothing has been imported in, then you probably have something here with these yellow highlights to indicate here's where you need to put some information in. So we now instituted how the course is delivered. We do get a lot of tickets about students who are confused. WINS may have said something about it being online at this date in this classroom, but it's really like hybrid or it may be fully online. So we have now put this front and center of what this course is. This is a screenshot of a class that's fully online. There is no live meeting sessions. If the course had online content but some scheduled Zooms, it would be 50% online or however many Zooms you had scheduled. If it's fully face-to-face, we would put that this is face-to-face so students know that there's a place they need to be at a certain time. And you need to definitely put your instructor name and your contact information on the first page, even if it's a face-to-face, so students know where you are located. Now, if you're trying to bring content in from somewhere else, you have a few options. If you were the instructor in a course in Sakai, you have these abilities. If you weren't, you won't be able to get some of those older courses. And you have three options, and there is some caveat, and you should be careful with these. If you are going to take stuff you did in, say, a face-to-face course, you had some handouts and assignments, syllabus and stuff, and you want to import it into your shell for this fall, and you haven't edited anything yet, you would want to use replace. This takes everything you had before and dumps it over and makes it into the new shell, and it will override whatever you had there before. If you have tinkered a little bit with especially the welcome page and maybe a different syllabus and stuff, you may want to merge those two courses and then clean up the things that you don't want. Because if you've edited, it's going to override if you replace. If you have something like merge users, we kind of highly caution that you don't, because it'll take some of the enrollments over and it can really mess up with the syncing with Banner. These are typically used if you are having a club or some kind of project course where you have the students go from course to course to course, but they're not necessarily graded and they're not going to a transcript. So this one is not used as much. Depending on how much you have to roll over, it can take a little bit. So when you start the enrollment from site info and import and you select what you want to roll over, it can take several minutes. We typically say about 15 minutes, but you do get an email notification when it is done. So if you start the import, wait for the email before you go in there and tinker stuff, because it is still rolling over and it isn't quite linear by tool. It seems to sort of just kind of appear there in pieces. So it is a caution if you are importing. The navigation looks a little bit different. We have some different icons after the upgrade. The tools are still on the left side and they are now white. And when you hover over them, they will have a highlight color to them. So these are typically what are in the new courses. We also have, for navigation purposes, on each page, a next and back. It'll go to the previous page that you were on. And things that are kind of like a box are actually buttons that go to a different page. So there are multiple ways for students and instructors to navigate through a course because they're all accessibility built on the back end. You can also rearrange these if you want as an instructor. So if there are some tools that you don't want to use, like maybe you won't have any quizzes or tests, you can turn the tool off and clean up your toolbar so you have a much cleaner, shorter section here. And if you want to hide things like resources, we do typically have a lot of courses like in math that have an image of a complex equation that they want to hide the resources because that's where that picture is hosted for a quiz or an exam. So that's up to you if you want to have that accessible for students because they could see it at any time. And here's a page that you should all edit regardless if you're teaching face-to-face, hybrid, or online. So here's a screenshot of a typical online course. We've kind of rearranged the layout a little bit after the update. We have a course image. Here's where we have the format. This one happens to be 100% online. And then the instructor would put in their information here and a course description, which typically comes from the course catalog. We do have dashboard in some courses where the layout is just a little bit different. The start here should be on because that gives students information about what are the course objectives, who's the instructor, there's a little bio there, what kind of technology pieces may they need for that course. Is there a certain program? A lot of the art programs have, Adobe or certain things they need to have. And information about how to get to the first modules. What are their first tasks? Do they need to register somewhere? Is there a form they need to turn in because it's an internship? That's really a key piece here. The other thing is a syllabus, and we'll get to that page here in just a second, but it is required by the university, regardless of your modality, that your syllabus is hosted there because that's kind of the repository of where we're keeping them for students who may transfer later and may need a copy. And then the roster is turned on by default, and it will update twice a day at noon and 8. So you do not have to manage that as an instructor, but you can always go there to see who is actively listed in your course. So I did mention the syllabus earlier. So there are two ways you can do the syllabus. You can either edit the page, and we do have a template that comes in automatically for you if you just fill in some places like your information, if there's any required books, your grading dates and stuff like that. Or you can create a document and upload just the document. So it's really your preference. There is a institutional policy that you have a syllabus in there by the first class meeting, which is typically August 26th for the fall semester. And we do keep those in there because when students transfer to other schools, they often request syllabus from each course, and we give that to them. So we go into what courses they had and pull out the syllabus because that's where they're hosted. It's very important that you put that in there, especially with courses that have a lot of adjuncts where they're different teachers every semester, because sometimes we can't track down the original instructor if it's not in that syllabus tool. So we do keep those. We do have grade appeals every now and then. We do have textbooks that are kind of built in if you've requested that. So typically instructors will have requested a book from the Barnes & Noble agreement we have, where if there's a digital book, it will be put in. There will be a Barnes & Noble tool on the tool side of the course. And when the student logs in, it will take them to that book, the LMS or whatever that publisher uses, or labs, videos, whatever they might have. And it's just kind of a link that's hosted within Sakai. And so students can just go to their course in Sakai and always get to their book through that method. So it's much more seamless and it's ready the first day of school. If you have some issue with setting it up, it does need to go through the publisher representative for that book or that publisher, because IT and the Office of or the Center for Teaching and Learning don't have access to those typically. So it is kind of an actual added piece that the instructor would be responsible for. In a course, there's typically these here, and you can turn these off. And the way you do that is you would go to Site Info, which would be in a list over here, and Manage Tools. You can change the order. You can turn them on or off if you don't want students to access them, such as the resources. If you have things in there you don't want students to see. If you don't have a test or quiz, you could turn that off. If you don't need announcements or you don't need something, you can turn them off and make that toolbar cleaner and shorter so it's less to manage. But that's totally up to you. The main tools that you probably will use, especially if it's an online class or hybrid class, are these over here. The course modules are where the content and instruction is for that course. So we call them modules. So there might be what you covered in week 1, all the readings, the instructions, the handouts, the assignments. And typically they're 6 to 8 to 16, depending on how your course is structured, which term it's given. Discussions are something that's heavily used in online courses because it replicates the face-to-face interaction and the back and forth between students and instructor. If you have a face-to-face class, you typically do these face-to-face, but you could do like a debriefing with the discussions tool in Sakai to supplement the face-to-face time. The assignments are, although discussions can be an assignment, you can grade them, there is an assignments tool. This is if you're collecting something from the student. So discussions are just back and forth text. Assignments are collecting something. It's a PDF, it's a Word document, it's image, it's a graphic, it's something, and you're collecting that as kind of like the inbox. And typically these can be graded or ungraded. We do have the ability to have a check mark, like say they turned in a field trip form or permission slip from an advisor or something. And these go to the grade book. Discussions can also go to the grade book, but you do have to manually create an item. So when they do their activity and discussion, you give them a grade, it goes to the grade book and starts calculating. Tests and quizzes are in there. These are things that are auto-graded for you because discussions and assignments, typically you have to hand grade and put a score in. Tests and quizzes are things where you've created something that has a question, answer options, and a correct answer, and it will calculate for you as the student does that activity. And they all go into the grade book. You can have quizzes that give a score but don't go to the grade book. We do have instructors who use practice quizzes as something that students can do over and over and over to practice, and it doesn't affect their grade. So that is an instructor option if you want it to be graded or not graded. Rubrics are in there, and you can apply it to discussions, assignments, and quizzes. The rubrics tool is actually very easy to use, and once you've built it, it can roll from course to course, or you can share a rubric with another instructor, because especially if it's a generic rubric about a speech or a presentation or some kind of basic writing assignment, we can take and share rubrics among instructors across the institution. And when you attach a rubric to one of these items here, when you go to grade, you just click on the boxes of the performance level, and it will calculate for you as a score that goes into the grade book if you've set it up that way. The rubrics also can save you a lot of time in terms of feedback, because if your performance levels are written as slightly different, whatever you clicked on describes why the student got that point versus other points. So it saves you a lot of time instead of writing, custom feedback through text. And then the gradebook can be set up either to be weighted, not weighted, have categories or not. It's totally up to the instructor. If you do choose categories, you will need to make sure that all of these discussions, assignments, and quizzes go into the category that you want them to do. There are some other tools that you can put into Sakai, and these are the most common ones we have, especially for math and the sciences courses, where they have extra things like simulations and videos and some things that don't quite fit into Sakai. If your course needs these, if you didn't have them with the Barnes & Noble set up, you can make a ticket. We can get these turned on for you real quick. And the bottom here are other tools that you might use. They're not typical to the course shell or the template, but you could use them, and we do have growing use of them. Assignments is actually used quite commonly, or you need to make a wide announcement. It'll be posted on the home page with the new layout of the course. Messages, we'll get into here in a second because there is a back door to that. But other tools that are growing in use are chat rooms. This would be a live text back and forth. It's a little bit different than discussions, because discussions is a post and it's not in real time. It's just based by post time. Chat room is like a real actual message system. So if your students wanted to study for a quiz, or they had a project they wanted to use and they wanted to work live, they could do that. We do have polls. I know there's tools like Mentimeter and stuff that you could pay for, but this one is built in where you can have a poll and the students answer there and see the data. We do have blogs are actually being used more often now in courses, especially the English courses, where students can write a longer piece of writing that other students in the class can see, or just the instructor, and then they can comment on it like a true social media tool, which is a little bit different than a discussion or an assignment, because it's kind of just there for everyone to see and comment on. And podcast, where if you want to find and insert some of these podcasts into a course for students to listen to because it relates to your topic, we can also turn that on for you, and you can embed that for you. Now, Sakai module, sometimes these are called lessons. If you have that wording on your toolbar, lessons, pages, modules, they're kind of all the same tool. What you typically see when you have the course modules button and you click on it is you see a page like this, and these are actually buttons to other sub pages within the course. These pages don't typically show on the toolbar, but they can, depending on how your course may be set up. But these are actually buttons to pages that have the content. If you want to release them, typically on Mondays, because that's kind of the school starts on a Monday, you can, or you can give students access to all the content in the course all at once. That's totally up to you. This is a screenshot of a course that is releasing each module page on Monday at 8 a.m. throughout the semester. So it sort of paces the course for students and keeps them from working ahead. But there is some students or instructors who give all the pages so students know what's coming and kind of manage their time. This is typically happens in the graduate level courses where students are a little bit better at time management. And I do want to mention that we use the word module rather than week, because we do have a lot of courses that may be offered in different schedules. So for example, a traditional 16-week course could be offered in 8 or 6 weeks. So if we use these terms as weeks, it gets a little hairy when we need to roll that content into a different shell and it's on a different schedule. So we do ask that you use modules so it's just a little more consistent, and then you're good to go and don't need to edit anything when you roll it into a different term. What's in a module is really up to you, but typically, especially for online and hybrid courses, we will have an overview, which is what you would say to a class when you're face-to-face. Hello class, this is what we're going to do this week. Here's your learning objectives, the things that we're hoping that you learn. There's videos and assignments, participation, polls, quizzes, all the things that you want to do. You notice that they all have the little icons that kind of match to indicate for accessibility purposes, especially for low vision. Here's the next set of text. Here's what you're doing. It's an activity. And that's why we chose to use different colors, fonts, and sizes to meet some of these quality matter standards for accessibility, so that all the learners with different issues can see and access the content. And especially with certain sizing and font on the back end, screen readers read these much better for people who are low vision if they're built in a certain way. So now that you know what's kind of in a course, once you get rolling and the semester starts, you need to manage some things. So the first thing that you may use is messages. And I mentioned before that this has sort of a caveat. You can do this 2 ways. You could use messages in Sakai that go to other users in Sakai, such as your students, and the messages go back and forth there. You also could send a copy to their email and go back and forth through that way, because they are kind of tied together. So our Gmail accounts, which is our email system, can handle both. So if you are in the message center, and here's an example of some new messages that might be there. When you go to send one, if you want to send a copy to someone's email address, what you're really doing is you're sending a message through Sakai that will be there waiting for them, but also through their email that will be waiting for them. So it kind of covers you when the student says you didn't respond to a message. You can do it both ways. And they are retained in the course even after the course is gone. You can also send out messages later. So if you wanted to send a reminder, if you're allowing students to retake a quiz, the cutoff is at this date, here's a message as a reminder. You want to send it out 24 hours before it's due, that would be something that you could typically use. In the messages tool, when you go to send to, it will populate with the roster of who's enrolled in your course. But remember that updates twice a day at 12 and 8. So if you're sending out a message now to students who may, remember the students that register late aren't going to get this message just yet because they aren't in your roster yet. But if you don't want to use messages, you want to send directly to Gmail, that's fine too. If you need to find the email address of a student, you can go to the roster button and their email address will be there that you can copy and paste into a message from Gmail. Now, announcements are something that is less private than a message back and forth to specific people. Announcements is going to appear on your overview page or your dashboard page as something that students need to see. So this is an example of a screenshot of what an announcement would be. If you're changing the date of assignment to give them extra time, or you were going to be sick, you need to cancel a face-to-face course, there's something that's due that's coming up, you know, your internship needs something due. This is typically what the announcements are for, rather than messages, because this is a class-wide announcement for everyone. You can edit it. You have the full text features if you want to do bolds and fonts, if there's something you really want to communicate that way. You can also use attachments if there's something you need to communicate. But this is for the public announcement rather than messages, which is kind of private. You can take attendance. This is typically for the online classes and some of the hybrid. If you want to turn this tool on, you go to the site info and manage tools. You will have a populated roster of who's enrolled in your course. Remember, it updates twice a day. If you want to mark the students however you want to mark, you can. This stays with the course. The data will be hosted there. And if you want to make this an assignment, you can create an item in the gradebook tool that says attendance. You can do it at the end of the semester when you've added it all up. You could do it every day, every week, however you want to do it. It's up to the instructor. But this is the tool that is a feature. This will be an issue probably the first 2 or 3 weeks of a term. Students who are enrolled in your course, but then don't actually do anything in your course, need to have their status changed. So typically you will receive, as an instructor, a notice about the second, third week of the term, what your attendance is for students who are enrolled. This is different than the everyday attendance you may be taking with the tool. This kind of has some very specific scenarios. For a student to be enrolled, they need to have shown up to at least one session of a face-to-face course. After like 2 weeks, they haven't, you're going to mark them as not attending and they will be unenrolled from your course. And when that next sync comes through from Banner, Sakai will remove their user from your course. If it's an online course, they need to log in within the first 48 hours. So after that first official date of the first class, they have 48 hours to log in and see something. There may not be anything due, but they have to attempt there. Or have they submitted anything in the online course in that time period? If they haven't, we consider them not attending and you mark them as so, and they'll be unenrolled from the course. And when Banner syncs, it'll pull them out. And you will verify this in our WIN system, which is the information network system that will hold their attendance. If they are marked as not attending the first few days or weeks of school, you have the option as the instructor to allow them back if they ask or keep them out. That's up to you. It kind of depends on your course, on how far behind are they and is it likely they're going to be able to catch up. So that's just something you have to keep in mind, that the early weeks of the term. When you get through the term and you have grades, they need to go somewhere in a repository. Now, all the grades in Sakai stay with Sakai. We never delete a course. We keep it for long-term data storages. We have grades back to 2010. But the final grade needs to go into a repository for transcript purposes. So once you have done the whole semester and you have grades in your Sakai gradebook, because it's auto-calculating based on what you've set up in the gradebook, you will get a final grade. We do not have pluses or minuses in grades. We just have letters. So of those 5 letters at the end, you will take your roster and go to WINS and enter the grade for each student. And that is what will populate on their transcript and allow them to be enrolled in subsequent courses and make sure that they meet some of those requirements. If you have your grades here, you can have one window open with the grades and just the list, and another window open with WINS and just populate those grades in there manually, because these, as of now, don't sync quite yet. Oh, that was a picture. When you get a copy of this presentation, here's a short video about all the little things you might need to do to get your class going. Once the content is in there, you do have a couple weeks, so if you need any help, you can make a ticket and we can make sure that everything's good to go. And if you need any additional help, we have a training page that has been newly created. This goes to SharePoint, so you will need to use your Active Directory login to get access to this site. And there are videos, there's handouts, there's links, and all kinds of stuff. We're still building and adding things to it. If you need something very specific, you can make a help ticket. If you want to learn how to make some of these very specific things in Sakai, we do have self-paced courses. We can enroll you in Sakai that you can do in your own time to learn how to do some of these advanced things. Whatever you need, you can make a help ticket, and we're happy to help you, put you in there. You could also get help through the Sakai Help Guide. Because of the update, things look a little bit different. Most of the functionality is still the same, but when you log into Sakai on your overview page, there is now a list of things that you might need access to. The featured ones is to make a help ticket, and if you want Sakai help, make sure you pick Sakai from the drop-down menu. If you need help logging in and some other stuff, that actually goes to IT on this page. The help guide, you can search for questions or tasks that you're trying to do, and they have screenshots and detailed step-by-step instructions on how to do some of those things. Some of these other things we've added that you might need help with. If you're using Respondus Lockdown browser for a quiz and something's not working, or you need something to know more about it, if you'd like to use it. If you have students that need peer tutoring, you want to direct them that way. If there's something wrong with the course you need something help with, live text is now outside of Sakai if you're using that for data collection in your course, and possibly library resources, especially if you want to add an academic journal inside your course. We can do that with a link that goes right to the article without students having to go and find it on their own. So any of these things, we're happy to make help for you and have a ticket. If you need anything else, I'm going to stop for questions. I don't know that we had anything in our chat, but if you have any questions, you can free to ask. Was I clear? Do I need to go over anything else again? This will be recorded, and we will hand out the video and the link to this presentation here later this afternoon. If you need any more help, just give us a help ticket.